My man, Esteban Carrillo, what's happening, man? You doing okay today?
Hi, Jamal. Good morning. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing okay. Esteban Carrillo, he is Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle, previously with Telesur English. And you guys have shows that come on now. Please tell the audience where they can find you, when they can catch you, because it's more than one day now.
Yeah, now we're actually going live in the mornings on Mondays and Thursdays. It's called The Cradle News Roundup. You can find us on YouTube and on Rumble, I think, as well. So we're trying to grow our subscriber base,
What time do you come on?
8 a.m. Eastern on Mondays and Thursdays.
You bastard.
I'm sorry. I know. When we discussed the time, I was like, oh no, Jamal goes on at that time. But
I'm totally joking. That's what I'm totally joking. No, I'm totally joking. Trust me. I'm pretty sure that when I came on, somebody was like, that motherfucker. Yeah. No, man, I am glad that you guys are doing well.
Thank you so much.
Just like with DD Geopolitics, you guys do fantastic work.
Thank you very much.
You really do. And I even get the opportunity to catch a few of your shows, but I always catch it on Twitter. So I didn't necessarily know the exact time frame that you guys were coming on.
I mean, they can watch us later,
Yeah, that's true. And people do the same thing for mine. When they're like, dude, 3 hours at 7 a.m. in the morning is a bit of a reach. I'll wait till you cut the videos, something I'll see it after that. It's like, okay, fair enough. No, man, but I'm glad you guys are coming on more days. Like a consistency helps. It really does. Like when people know where to find you and what time to find you, they show up. And like I said, you guys do great work. You and DD Geopolitics, you guys are fantastic.
Thank you, Jamal.
Because there are several outlets, and you're one of them, that I guess I never quite understood it until somebody told me about it. They said, yeah, man, I used to watch a show just to be a troll. He said that I found myself watching for over like a year. not even realizing that you had converted the person into a listener. Like he just kind of just woke up one and was like, holy shit, I'm actually following the content. And I think I felt that way with DD Geopolitics and with The Cradle. It kept showing up in my feed. The stuff was solid. The articles were great. And after several months, you realize, holy shit, I'm watching this all the time. Like I'm reading the content constantly. Like it's I don't say relying upon it, but definitely helps grease the wheels in regards to like research and those type of things. So
indeed,
yes. I'm gushy because your work is fantastic.
Thank you very much, really.
Netanyahu is in the United States. He's in Washington, D.C. And in one of the weirdest, oddest moments, you get Netanyahu putting Trump's name in for a Nobel Peace Prize. And I know the audience right now might be like, dude, that's fucking AI generated. There's no way. No, I am telling the truth.
A
war criminal that has gotten 400,000 people killed is sitting across from Trump. Trump, by the way, bankrolling that war criminal to get all of those people killed. And he comes out and says this.
The president has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country, in one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know.
Oh yeah, wow. I'm sure he didn't know.
That is astonishing. That is astonishing. Like I want to spit at the screen. Like I don't want to do it on camera. That is astonishing clip.
It's almost, if we weren't talking about a Holocaust, this would be like the sketch comedy of the week. Imagine it would be.
Just to back you up on that, the same guy at the exact same time where they're doing that.
Exactly.
Both of these criminals.
Yeah, this is what he is getting nominated for, right? Donald Trump is obviously he wants what Obama got, right? Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize as he was bombing Somalia and Syria and so many other countries and providing weapons for Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen. Yet he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. So of course Donald Trump says, "Why not me?" right? Why not me? I also deserve the Peace Prize, because this is the motto, right, of the second term of Trump's White House is peace through strength, right? Peace through strength. This is what he has base his entire foreign policy model on, and then it extends to the tariffs, it extends to everything, really. Like, this is how he sees the United States' role in the larger geopolitical scheme, as this big bully that just throws its way around and expects everyone to fall in line. He did it yesterday, right, with these new tariffs. First of all, he targets Japan and South Korea, historic allies of the U.S., and now providing more weapons for Israel, funding the modern day Holocaust. And it also shows you, right, that the Nobel Committee, the Nobel Peace Prize, is a joke, right? When Obama got it, we already understood what a joke it was. Now, there's the possibility that Trump might actually get it, because the moment they announce a ceasefire in Gaza, it's going to be presented as the end of the war, right? Because nobody calls it a genocide; they only call it a war. And that's where it's going to end. That's when it's going to stop. Everything we've seen, everything we've heard, everything that continues to happen, it doesn't matter anymore, because Trump, the peacemaker, achieved peace through strength.
But there will be no ceasefire in Gaza.
There will be no ceasefire in Gaza. There will be no ceasefire in Gaza. At most, there will be a change in tactics, is what I expect, right? Yesterday, the big anticipation of Netanyahu's trip to Washington was that a ceasefire would be announced, right? Many people were even thought, hey, maybe Trump was going to blindside Bibi again, like he did, remember, when he announced the talks with Iran. But now we know that whole, blindsiding Bibi and talks with Iran deal was a smokescreen, was a trap being set for the Iranians. We know that now. We many of us suspected it back then, but now we know it for a fact. And now the same thing is going to happen once the ceasefire is announced, because we know Israel is it's incapable of keeping to an agreement. It's incapable to accepting, to maintaining a ceasefire. They continue to bomb Lebanon. There's been a ceasefire, a U.S.-backed ceasefire in Lebanon since November. And Israel has violated that over 3,000 times. Just this weekend, they bombed every single day. Even to yesterday, they bombed in the south of Lebanon. They killed 2 people. So I don't, and in Gaza, it's the same. The ceasefire that was reached earlier this year, they violated it a few weeks into it with absolutely no repercussion, no consequences. This is a rogue state that knows it faces if it has impunity, it faces no consequences. So why would we? Why would we stick to a ceasefire, right? I mean, I look at it from their perspective. Why would they? They have absolutely no incentive, because they know there's no punishment.
But the death toll has been going up in Gaza, which has fascinated me. I've been watching the number of Israeli soldiers get killed, sipping coffee as I watched. It was, meaning blowing up tanks, just bravery at a level that is mind-blowing. Guys running out with a bomb, sticking it on a tank, running back and screaming Allahu Akbar at the top of their lungs as the tank blows up. And he's like, whoa, that's intense. Or, setting up these ambush. I mean, I think recently there was this ambush that killed 5, injured 14.
They've admitted to 5. They've admitted to 5, because, they always... they
lowball it, yeah.
Yeah, they always lowball it.
The numbers have started to go up in this way. Because it wasn't that way before. I mean, I attribute it to the Iran war, that Iran destroyed something, some logistics, damaged the military in some fashion, where they can't exert that level of dominance that they could without taking a number of casualties. But maybe I'm getting this wrong. Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, the reason why it has been going up, the death toll recently, is because the Qassam brigades have kind of restarted their operations, right? For a while, there was a lull. They were not actually targeting Israeli soldiers. But now, a few weeks ago, once it became clear that first of all, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was simply there to kill Palestinians, and second of all, that Israel has no interest in a ceasefire yet again. The Palestinians have to discover this. They restart their operations, and now what happened last night was the most extensive operation, or I guess the most successful since the start of the genocide. Now look at that, 640 days into this Holocaust. The Hamas, who was supposed to be completely defeated and dismantled months ago, right? Israel was already announcing that Hamas was essentially dead in the water. They still managed to pull off these ambushes in the north of Gaza, right? In the north of Gaza, which has seen the worst this genocide, of this ethnic cleansing campaign, and yet they managed to kill at least 5 Israeli soldiers and injure many more. It was very interesting because they were talking about multiple ambushes, right? They set up one bomb, and then they ambushed the rescue crews, and then they at the end, after 2 more ambushes, they just start opening fire on whoever was left there. So it shows a level of strategic cohesion. Yeah, like in what the Palestinians are still able to do 640 days into this genocide. And also the Israeli losses keep mounting, as you said, right? It's not just the losses inside of the strip, it's also outside, right? We have had suicides, we have had reservists who are simply not willing to go back because there's no goal. All of the Israeli soldiers that come out, or at least the ones that are brave enough to talk to the press, they say our orders are to kill civilians. That's what the orders are. These are not like isolated incidents, a few bad apples. No, that's the order from the commanders. And when we question the commanders as to why are we shooting a teenager, why are we shooting children, the commanders snap at us and they say, just follow your orders.
Because that's the goal.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know why people are shocked by this. Like, are you mystified why people are bewildered by this? And I'm even mystified why Israeli soldiers are bewildered by this. They want to destroy, they want to destroy every building, every hospital, anything that would allow people to live in that area. They need it to be gone because they want those people to be gone, which means they need to kill as many people as possible. They need to make it inhospitable. So when they go out and say kill civilians, they mean kill civilians. That is your military objective. It's not like a normal military campaign where it's, okay, go out and take this hill. No. Go out and kill and make those people want to leave or at the very least die so they won't exist in this area. We need to take all of the land and all of the territory. So I don't know why the soldiers are confused by that.
I mean, first of all, the Israeli army's doctrine, their military doctrine, is disproportionality. It's never about a tit for tat. It's always about we have to come in way harder than whatever was done to us or we perceived that was done to us, because how many of their wars have started just out of perception, not so much out of an actual provocation. But so that's the command. That has been the case for decades at this point, right? We're in 2025. We're talking about since the 80s, since the 70s, or even the 60s, that the Israeli army, even from the Nakba, from the very moment when they stole Palestine from the Palestinians, they didn't come in and and demarcate lines and discuss things. They came in and started ethnically cleansing everyone, all the Arab population, and they have continued to do so, just with different methods. So you look at what was revealed recently, right? You must have seen this stuff about the Tony Blair Institute and about the Boston Consulting Group, that they were working on models to facilitate the relocation of Palestinians from Gaza, aka the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And to rebuild the strip, right? And this is what Netanyahu and Trump discussed yesterday, right? Trump was talking about, what did he call him? He called him Netanyahu, like the best man alive or something like that. He said something like that. It's something like that. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he used
the clip of them talking about that, and maybe he says it on here.
He says, alive. And so they talk of. Let's see.
If people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians.
That degenerate asshole. The notion that he's saying, well, if they want to leave, they can leave. You are murdering people in mass. And it's like, but they can stay if they want to.
Exactly. They can stay if they want to, right? I mean, they're pretty clear. They have this way of making it sound like it's an option, first of all, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess if you leave, if you want to leave, you can leave. But if you can stay, you can also stay. I mean, what they're saying is you either leave or you're going to continue to get bombed. Because if you stay, we're going to continue to bomb you. I mean, look at what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has been working on. These transitional humanitarian zones or something that they called it, it came out yesterday. And the defense minister, ordered that the army start kind of developing this plan in a more, on the ground manner. These are concentration camps right? They just become euphemisms like a transitional humanitarian zones. What it means is pushing Palestinians into smaller areas. In the last few hours, the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor just came out to say that currently Palestinians in Gaza have a smaller living space than detainees in Guantanamo. That's how bad the situation has become for them, because the 2 million Palestinians have been pushed into an area that is about 15,000 square kilometers, or I think it's 15% of the strip is where they're currently able to inhabit. So, once you actually do the math, it becomes less than what people in Guantanamo, the detainees in Guantanamo have as a living space. And now in Gaza, you're not talking about a cell. You're not talking about a prison cell. You're talking about a tent, or just, a little piece of land that is covered in sewage, because everything has been destroyed. And that's where the Palestinians are being pushed. So, of course, Netanyahu comes in and Trump comes in and they pretend like, oh, my God, who would want to live in these conditions? But they don't talk about who created these conditions. Why are Palestinians living in this situation? It simply appears to be a fact of life that they are in this, horrible situation, and they must want to leave, right? And now these concentration camps, they're talking about some of them being in Gaza, but others, of course, being in the Sinai Desert or in Cyprus, or, they in this same meeting, they talk about, we're still finding countries to take in the Palestinians. Did anybody ask the Palestinians if they want to leave? Did anybody ask if they want to leave and never return? Because they're never going to be allowed to return. In one of these models that the Tony Blair Institute was working on, they have this little map of Gaza, of a rebuilt Gaza. And they have, the Mohammed bin Salman Highway and the Elon Musk manufacturing plant and the Donald Trump something or other. No, it's there. I go to your readers, go to the Financial Times where they talk about the Tony Blair Institute. They have this little map of Gaza with all of these names of what would be, this future city built inspired by Dubai. The Palestinians are not going to live there. If this future city, the Riviera of the Middle East, ever comes to pass, you can bet your ass the Palestinians are not going to be a part of it. They're not going to be. This is about expelling them. In the first days after the genocide, in the first days after October 7, 2023, an Israeli magazine leaked an intelligence report that was already talking about plans of how to displace the 2.3 million Palestinians from Gaza. So everything we've seen over the past nearly 2 years at this point has been the implementation of that plan. But of course, using euphemisms and using, the cover of the Western media that has just been, complicit in genocide, the BBC, CNN, anybody, you name it, from Western media, they have been complicit in what's happening. But as we said, Israel works in complete impunity.
Well, they didn't work in impunity when they ran up on a hard one with Iran. And what's wild about that is it's as if they believe that shooting kids in the back is the same thing as fighting a proper war. And they were disabused of that in fantastic fashion. Yeah. I'm curious on, two things. One, do you think they're going to be able to remove, and it's not even 2 million people now, it's 1.8, maybe even less, based on, the Harvard study that took place, where 400,000 people were just vanished under rubble, under mud, dead, buried, etc., where they went from 2.2 million to like 1.8, 1.7. Do you think they're going to really be able to, kill or forcibly remove those people? I mean, up to this point, Egypt is still saying no. Jordan is still saying no.
Look, first of all, let me just talk about this study, because this is something we reported on, and then actually we had to do a retraction, because it was a misrepresentation of what the study was actually about. When these 400,000. Yes, so it was a Ben Gurion University professor who did this study. And the cradle fell for this, as many other outlets did, in misunderstanding what he's actually talking about. What he was actually talking about was that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was only available, or reachable to 1.8 million Palestinians, and that 400,000 were kind of like, forgotten about, let's say, in that sense. But of course, because remember that the Lancet last year published a study that said that the death toll could reach as many as 500,000 Palestinians if the intensity of the war continues, if the intensity of the genocide continues. So, of course, when you see that, you don't really question it, because by this point you've already seen like so many other studies that talk about the same thing. And actually, and I forget who the source for this was, but just a few days later, a study came out that said that the death toll is actually closer, or probably surpassed 100,000 already, because you have the official death toll that talks about 60,000, I think it stands currently. But
Yes.
The Lancet and other ones have already said this death toll is being undercounted by at least 40 to 45%. So if you count that in, plus everyone who has been reported missing, then your number suddenly becomes over 100,000. So, not to discount the brutality of the Israeli genocide, because the figures are already, horrific, especially when you're talking about a piece of land like Gaza. As far as will they be able to ethnically cleanse the Strip, the only way to manage to get rid of that big of a population is to industrialize the ethnic cleansing, right? To industrialize the mass killing. And that is something that Israel has not done yet, right? Because their mass killing, they haven't really, built gas chambers, let's say, to start just marching Palestinians in. But they have just been dropping more than, the equivalent of more than 6 bombs, like the ones that were dropped in Hiroshima. The equivalent of more than 6 nuclear bombs. So that's why I don't think the genocide is going to end anytime soon. Or if a ceasefire is announced, then the methods are simply going to change. And you're going to have the Israeli army at some point have to come back in and have to start somehow pushing these Palestinians, who I'm sure some will want to leave, Jamal. I mean, no matter what your connection to the land is, after being through the hell that they have been put through, I'm sure many families will want to simply say, I want to leave. I don't care. I just don't want to have to deal with more bombs over my head. But a possibly much bigger proportion of Palestinians are going to say, no, we're not going to leave because this is our land. Look at what happened when the ceasefire was announced in March, right? When this, I think it was 2 weeks that lasted the ceasefire. The first things that Palestinians did was start marching back to their homes in the north of Gaza, trying to cross the Netzarim corridor, which is this land corridor that Israel built to split the Strip in two, and where the Israeli forces had, for I think up to a year now, had established a killing zone, right? An imaginary line through which Palestinians couldn't cross. They would call it the line of corpses, where if they saw any movement, they would just shoot them, and all of a sudden you would just have this line of corpses at a certain distance from the Netzarim corridor. Nevertheless, regardless of that, Palestinians start marching back north. It's the same thing that happened in Lebanon when through the many wars that Lebanon has gone through. The moment a ceasefire comes into place, no matter whether they know that the violation is going to come down the line, they start marching back to their homes because this is their homes. These are their lands.
I am curious on something else. Did you see the interview between Tucker Carlson and Pezeshkian?
I got some of it, yes.
Okay. Give me your overall take before I say anything about it. Give me your overall take on Pezeshkian in that interview.
Pezeshkian seems to, I don't know. To me, it's one of two things. Either he hasn't learned his lesson, or he's trying to portray a certain image to kind of dissuade the West from thinking that Iran is, either moving towards a bomb or simply a threat, let's call it that. But I think it's really, like the fact that he goes out and says, he says this line that I just found to be so ridiculous, which was that I think President Donald Trump can lead the region to peace and security, but it's just like he has such bad influence over his shoulder. And that is, come on, man. Like, they lured you into negotiations that were put in place just to make you think Israel wouldn't attack you and that the U.S. wouldn't attack you. Remember that the attack on Iran, the U.S. attack on Iran, it was not developed by the Trump White House. The U.S. attack on Iran, as it was conducted, was developed by the Biden White House 8 months before.
Yes.
It was already on the table. So I don't know what Pezeshkian is even talking about. In particular, Trump is the man who ordered the hit on Soleimani. Trump is the man who walked away from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal. Trump is the president that bombs Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump is the president that lulls Iran into a false sense of security. And yet Pezeshkian goes on TV and says, Donald Trump can lead the region to stability and security. My God, man, like, I hope you're lying. I truly, truly pray that he is, just putting on an act, doing the song and dance so that, the U.S. people can be like, oh, they're not so bad, they're not as bad as they're telling us. Because if what he says is actually what he thinks, then what a shame. Truly a shame.
I thank you for saying that, because I often get criticized for being too brutal towards Pezeshkian. I remember I did a video in the title I had called Weak Leader. That was the only thing I just Weak Leader and a picture of his face on it. I don't care if he is shucking and jiving for an American audience. You shouldn't say it. You just shouldn't say it. And one of the things that never came up in that, if you notice, was Israel has nukes. How do you not say that? You're talking to an American audience, and you were finally getting the opportunity to say whatever you need to say. And it felt like he was trying to get Tucker Carlson's approval or something. I don't know how to place it, but you never bring up once that Israel has nuclear weapons in an entire time that you are having this conversation. Instead, it feels like you are trying to justify your sovereignty, which
exactly
you shouldn't have to do.
Oh my God, exactly. You hit the nail right on the head. You have to justify your existence. If anyone has to justify their existence, it's the apartheid state that's committing a genocide, not the sovereign nation that has the support of its people and that has not committed a genocide and that has not started wars and that has only acted militarily in reaction to an attack, not initiate an attack on their own. It's truly Pezeshkian. We know that he comes from the quote unquote reformist wing of the Iranian political sphere, and he was elected. He was elected at the polls. So it shows that this was the will of the Iranian people. But at the same time, why is he elected? Because Ibrahim Raisi dies, right? Dies in suspicious circumstances that I will say, I will maintain. This was the first shot in the war to dismantle the axis of resistance, because it was Raisi. Raisi's dead, and not just Raisi's dead, but Amir Abdullahian, the foreign minister, who was a brilliant figure. Their death is the ball, is the snowball that starts rolling, and that leads us straight into the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, straight into the dismantling of Hezbollah, straight into the fall of Syria and the rise of the head chopper in chief, and now to what we're witnessing currently, the war on Iran and etc. and all of that. And you have a very weak leader. If Ibrahim Raisi hadn't been killed, we would be having a different conversation today, Jamal. A completely different conversation.
So I'm going to go to your outlet, The Cradle, because again, as I point out, you guys do good work, and you had already sliced these up. And I want to play a couple of these, because a couple of these, it felt like, and maybe I'm so accustomed to Sergei Lavrov, where Sergei Lavrov comes across far more practice, far more, I don't want to say adversarial, because he doesn't come across angry, but he is more fighting.
He's righteous. Lavrov is very righteous in their statements. They're very like, this is our country, these are decisions, you don't get to tell us what we do. Pezeshkian seemed very much like a lapdog.
It's that. We are going to defend our interests. Full stop.
Exactly.
We don't need to, we don't need to kowtow to you. We don't need to justify it. We're going to defend our interests. Period. And that's not the way Pezeshkian came across in this interview. It came across more explaining, more trying to justify. And I kept thinking to myself, dude, you're a sovereign country. Why are you having some of these conversations? So I want to go to, and by the way, even the look.
Yes.
Like he looks so tiny in comparison to Tucker Carlson. Is it just me? Like he looks like a child, like a little old man child.
I don't understand, I don't understand the optics of this. Like look at you and me. We look better right now than the president of Iran in this interview.
He's like just sitting in the corner. And I'm like, dude, who set up these optics? But okay, fair enough. You may think I'm nitpicking. It
matters.
Is a big deal.
All of
it
this
matters.
Yes, it matters.
When John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon were having their debate, people who saw the debate thought that John F. Kennedy won. People who heard the debate thought that Richard Nixon won. Optics matters in these conversations. And having him sitting very tiny, much smaller than Tucker Carlson, was like
with this like a 2000s era webcam, I guess they were using. I mean, like let's not get too far into this, but it's just like it's a bit of an embarrassment what happened, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know who set this up, but okay, fair enough. I want to play. I think this is the clip.
And they acted accordingly, but they failed. And as a true believer,
okay,
try.
So this is it. Tucker Carlson said, "Do you think they tried to assassinate you? Do you think they tried to assassinate you?"
Yes. And they acted accordingly, but they failed. And as a true believer, I believe that it is in the hands of the God Almighty to determine when a person will die or will not die. If he would.
Now, I'm playing that clip to be a bit of a dick, because what I am going to say is I don't think for one moment that anybody tried. If anybody was safe in Iran, Pezeshkian was the safest man in Iran that day. That week, that attack, those 12 days, he was the safest man on the planet. If you wanted to make sure the Ayatollah was safe, put him beside Pezeshkian, because I don't believe for a moment that Israel was trying to take him out. I just don't buy it. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But you have people who openly believe that Pezeshkian is a plant. And as you point out, the first strike against Iran was assassination of Raisi, allowing him to come into power. And some people ask us, like, okay, well, is that guy a plant? Like, why is he this weak? Why does he say stuff like this?
I don't think he's a plant. I honestly don't think. No. I don't think he's a plant. I just think he represents exactly the side of the political spectrum that is the reformist side, which is we need to make friends with the West, no matter what they do to us, no matter how much they violate our sovereignty and spark wars against us, and how many genocides they commit. We need to be friends with the West, and on one hand, I wouldn't, me personally, I don't think there needs to be, more presidents who are pushing for war, right? I think that there needs to be more that are pushing for diplomatic resolutions. But at the same time, if you keep getting poked in the way that Iran has been poked over the past, a year and a half, then your stance should be stronger. As you said, why are you there justifying your own existence, justifying your sovereignty, and talking about and giving Trump his flowers? And then, like you said, not talking about the nuclear program or just saying, that Israel tried to assassinate us. Even the response of the Iranians, right, when they bombed Israel, they killed some commanders of the Israeli army, but they are not going for targeted assassinations. They don't do tit for tat, even though they're kind of in the right to do it, right? Like if you come at me and you kill the head of the IRGC and you kill the head of the intelligence, and let me come and do the same to you, because at the end of the day, these are military targets. It's the Israelis' choice to build, the Kiria, the defense ministry, in the middle of a populated area. It's the Israelis' choice to put Iron Dome batteries next to residential buildings. So, if this is the war you pick, then this is the war we need to fight.
Also, Israel intentionally goes after killing as many people as they can kill in a combat. I mean, one of the things that I think the world saw, and then, I don't know if they were blown away by it, but I guess I was, that Iran would go after a specific military target in the middle of the city, and you might get like 2 casualties. Israel goes after a target, and it's like 100 people dead. And it's like, what the hell? So meaning Iran was able to make the point that you can go after targets without killing 30, 40 people at a time when you're going after those targets, which made it elusive. It made it clear that Israel was going after targets in a way that didn't care if they killed a huge number of people, meaning if they took down an apartment building, okay, yeah, there might have been 50 people, but we got our one guy. Iran didn't do that. And I got to be honest, it annoyed the hell out of me on some level that they didn't do it. Because it's tit for tat on some level. They are explicitly going after nuclear scientists. They're explicitly going after family members of people who, like generals off duty, sleep in their beds at nights. and they would blow up the entire apartment building, taking down 50 people with them as they do it. And they did it over and over and over again. Israel killed nearly 700 people in Iran. And obviously, those weren't the majority of military targets. The overwhelming majority of those people were just civilians. Yes. And so it's like Iran wants points for being moral. Okay. But dude, that's not, you guys are playing two different games. And I get that you want to be able to leave that thinking to yourself, well, I feel great about myself. And it's like, from my point of view, you lost 700 people. Okay, yeah. You kept your dignity while losing 700 people. Is that really standard? Or do you need to hit them back in similar ways, just as painful, just as brutal? But that's not what they wanted to do. In this interview, on some level, him said that. Like this weird, at least I think it's weird because I'm an American, but this odd way in which they go about this stuff. Like this clip, for example. They asked him, are you open to new U.S. talks? Now, as you keep pointing out, you were in talks with the U.S. You were promised that Israel wouldn't attack. Mm-hmm. You were sucker punched with the explicit objective of overthrowing your government. Uh-huh. The United States knew that they were trying to overthrow your government. And as Pezeshkian, you could go back and say, well, look at the context of history where you're looking at Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, etc. And now you're here, meaning you have a context of which the United States intentionally and purposefully overthrew one government after the next. But Pezeshkian doesn't make that argument. He doesn't make that case in that way. He acts as if Israel is in Donald Trump's ear. And it's like, dude, Israel gets all of its money from the United States. It gets its weapons from the United States. It gets a green light from the United States. Why are you acting as if this is only Israel? This is both. Their objective was to overthrow your government. I don't know. It's aggravating to me. It is,
yeah. A bit, yeah. I agree with you.
Where they ask him specifically, are you open to new talks with the United States? This is, come on. Okay, now you're going to do that. Let me reset this stupid Twitter. Come on. All right, here we are. 9 minutes. And
they want
nations with the United States, with Envoy Steve Witkoff or anyone else? And if not, what do you think will happen?
We see no problem in re-entering the negotiations. But before that, I have to remind you that because of the atrocities by the Zionist regime, by Israel, not just against my country, but in the whole region, we are now facing a crisis. The people are facing a crisis that we need to put it behind ourselves. Our commanders were off duty. They were spending the night at their homes with their families, but they were killed. And this is considered a war crime according to the international law, because they were off duty, as I said, or our scientists were also killed and assassinated along with their families and their wives and their children. They were also killed. Pregnant women, children, they were killed in the atrocities, in the attacks of the Israeli regime. Just because they wanted to kill one single person, they had to demolish and destroy a whole building. And as a result of this, a lot of innocent people were killed. A lot of people were killed. And as I said, there is this crisis that we have to put it behind ourselves. And there is a condition, there is a provision for the restarting the talks. How are we going to trust the United States again? We re-enter the negotiations. Then how can we know for sure that in the middle of the talks, the Israeli regime will not be given the permission again to attack us?
Do you believe the Israeli government tried to assassinate you?
Okay. Now, if what he is saying is true, which it is, that effectively the green light was given to attack us during the time we were in negotiations, then why is he also saying that there is no issue with us resuming talks, that we just have to put this behind us? And it's like, dude, you have just said that they have slaughtered pregnant women. How do you put that behind you in order to have talks going forward? Like that's what I mean, right? It's like nobody in their right mind will go back to negotiations and talks with the United States after killing 700 people as a direct result of what the United States did. And yet Pezeshkian seemed to say, in one sense, well, yes, we're okay with talks. However, we have a lot to put behind us. It's like, okay, then you're not okay with talks. Why can't you just say, dude, you attacked us. We were in the middle of talks already.
That what would we trust? I mean, he does say that, and then he maintains it on the table. It's like speaking out of both sides of his mouth, kind of.
Yes.
I feel like Tucker Carlson. It would have been much more interesting if he had interviewed, the Ali Khamenei. I think we would have gotten much better answers than Pezeshkian. Let's remember also that at the end of the day, the military command, it's under Khamenei, not under Pezeshkian, right? And I feel like this desire to return to talks and to kind of lay down for the U.S. First of all, let's remember that Donald Trump does not respect weakness. Any sign of he's like blood in the water for him. And Pezeshkian in this interview looks very weak. From the optics to his answers, this is a man that is, you can put. He looks like a complete pushover. Truly, that's how Trump's going to perceive him. But on the other hand, I think maybe what is, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here at this point. We have to remember the sanctions as well, right? Like Iran, their whole the talks for them is not so much about the nuclear, development. It's more about sanctions relief. This is what the Iranians want. This is why Pezeshkian gets elected, right? Because Iran is suffering under sanctions. They have been suffering for so long. Like Trump, when he talks about maximum pressure sanctions, it's he means it, right? I saw a report recently that says that I think about 80% of the Iranian population is food insecure. Regardless of what they tell you, because at the end of the day, Iran is a country of 92 million people, right?
I know, but Trump just added new sanctions.
He kept adding sanctions throughout the talks. Every week after every round, there would be new sanctions targeting, the Chinese oil and etc. Although I think he lifted a few, in particular to the oil trade a few weeks ago. But, to Trump, just like the tariffs, right? One day they're here, one day they're not. The next day they will be back. It's just this back and forth with and never ending, as long as he can claim victory. But I don't understand either. Why do you want to go back to talks when you know that is again? It's just going to be used as a smokescreen.
Yes. And I guess my thing is everything that they've tried to do backfired. Like, if you think about it, they went with 60% enrichment. Okay, so that's the worst of both worlds. It gives them this kind of stalking horse impression that you're trying to get a nuke, even though you're not. I don't even believe they were trying to get a nuke, right? But it allows people who are not paying attention to come away with the assessment that, well, they're trying to get a nuke. In the other capacity, or in the other sense, you get the other thing of like, okay, so they can cast you as trying to get a nuke, even though you're not trying to get a nuke. Meaning, it's one thing if you say, okay, we're going to get our nuke. It's another thing if you say, well, we're not going to get our nuke. But you at the middle of it, that allowed them to kind of frame you as trying to get a nuke. Now, from my point of view, you should have already got a nuke. Yeah. And you still got hit with sanctions. And you still got attacked. So everything that you have done in order to avoid a war has led you to ending up in a war. And everything that you did to try to get rid of sanctions have landed more sanctions. That's what I'm saying. Like this, I understand that the objective was to try to get rid of the sanctions. But it's as if they didn't understand that it wasn't about nuclear weapons. It was about overthrowing their government.
Yes. Assassinating.
I mean, they wrote it down in papers. Like there are pamphlets about how to overthrow the Iranian government. which is what confused me about the way Iran was effectively functioning.
I mean, look at the Wesley Clark quote from like 20 years ago or something, in which it says 7 countries in 5 years. By this point, all 7 countries have been either hit or just completely destabilized. As long as Israel exists as an apartheid colony, Iran is never going to be safe, right? Because and it doesn't matter if Netanyahu comes or goes. Because first of all, remember that let's say tomorrow Netanyahu leaves because they agree to a ceasefire and his government collapses. His party, Likud, is still expected to take about is still expected to take about a third of all seats in the Knesset. Yes. And then you have the lunatics, the Jewish supremacists, like Otzma Yehudit and religious Zionism parties that are also going to have representation still in the parliament. And so no matter if you put, you remember Naftali Bennett or Yair Lapid, these opposition figures who lasted less than a year in their own little transitional government between, Netanyahu and Netanyahu, they're going to be still under pressure to launch war with Iran. Until Iran is turned into another Iraq that is, a failed state that has to ask for permission from the U.S. to use their own money from oil sales, or into a new Syria that is a caliphate, an Al-Qaeda caliphate, then Israel is not going to be at peace. Israel is not going to be, is not going to calm down. And the Zionist lobby and your medium adult sons and your, AIPACs and etc. are going to continue to make sure that the U.S. funnels all of the weapons that Israel needs for this war to, destroy the Islamic Republic of Iran. And, I'm talking to you, from my own perspective. So I imagine that Iranian leaders and Iranian planners are more than aware of this and have their own design. And, the Iranians, they are very, they like to pride themselves in their strategic patience. Right, and they like to always say that we play chess, we play the long-term game. We have been here for thousands of years, etc., which is true. So I hope they have a plan in mind that is not just we fell for another trap again.
Well, I've beat every Iranian chess player that has ever come up on chess.com. Famous, somebody is going to be like, "You motherfucker." One last thing. Do you think that he could get elected today?
Whom?
Pezeshkian, given what they know now. I mean, when you have liberal women screaming that Iran needs a bomb, which is mind-blowing to me, right? Like a few years ago, she would have been protesting the government. And now she's in a position where she's screaming for a nuclear weapon. Do you think with, let's say, I'm going to say radicalization, because I don't think it's radicalization. I think it's rational. But where the public's mindset is, do you think they would be looking for a reformer today?
I don't think so. It's an interesting question, though. It's a very interesting question. I wish we had some sort of opinion polls. I don't know, how. I don't think Iran does that very much, on a month-to-month basis. It would be very interesting to see where the public stands at this moment in the terms of who would you want to be leading your country? Are you satisfied with Masoud Pezeshkian's performance? Because it did wake something up in the Islamic Republic, as you said, right? All of a sudden, you have across the spectrum, people saying, well, first of all, we need to defend our country. And second of all, we should actually build a bomb because, look at North Korea. North Korea, of course, under sanctions, but they are not facing the threats that Iran faces. The same, for Russia and China, although obviously in a much different scale, right? Because they are differently in economic and military size. But it is a deterrent at the end of the day. It is a deterrent for these type of wars. So I don't know. I think maybe not. Maybe not. He wouldn't be elected because obviously, the whole outlook of the situation has changed dramatically. But on the other hand, I'm not sure who will be elected, right? I'm not sure who would be the representative from the other side, because I will go back to this. When they killed Raisi and Abdullahian, they really hurt the Islamic Republic, in ways that we are still kind of unraveling, because I don't know if there's at this point anyone who can fill those shoes.
That is a good point. Esteban, man, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate you on this. I wanted to give you the first take on Pezeshkian because you might have had a completely different point of view of me in that interview. The optics by itself look bad. I don't know. I don't know if it was an interpreter or there was like a lot of arms or I don't know what it was. It
wasn't good. It wasn't good. I agree with you. I think it would have been much, much better from almost every angle. Yeah.
Esteban Carrillo, he is Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle, previously with Telesur English. Esteban also has a show, The Cradle. Where can people find you with the show? I don't know if I've given.
We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We are. You can also go to our website, thecradle.co, and you'll find a link right there in the homepage. So yeah, it's called The Cradle News Roundup. So check us out on Mondays, Thursdays at 8 a.m. Eastern.
Excellent. Thank you, my man. You be safe, okay?
Thank you, Jamal. Talk to you next time.
Have a good one. All right.